My childhood, I've heard ideas of how African Americans descend from these half-naked, barefoot, warring tribes of savages who sold each other into slavery. To a point, this has caused a little bit of tension between all the peoples of the African diaspora. But when it comes to demystifying the myth, of course, I want to talk about it. So let's go. Welcome to the Ready Brew. My name's T. Edge, King Beaker for the Brew. And today I want to discuss slavery. Being that it's Black History Month, I want to try to clear the air just a little bit. History as told by the dishonest have always wanted us, and when I say us, I mean the entire world, to believe that slavery stemmed from these tribal wars in Africa. And I have to admit, there were wars, but these wars were instigated by the slavers who wanted to make commerce of our people. I want to shine a proper light, so let me tell you about our people. Or better yet, let me allow people who were on the ground in those days to tell you about our people and who we were. In the 1775 pamphlet, Thoughts Upon Slavery by John Wesley, who was a minister in the Christian church, he gives us a description of who the Africans were on the ground. I'm just going to give you a few little snippets from this pamphlet that he wrote. On page number 6, it reads, "The government is easy because the people are of quite good disposition, and so well entrusted in what is right that a man who wrongs another is an abomination to all. They desire no more land than they use, which they cultivate with great industry. If any of them are known to be made slaves by the white men, they all join to redeem them." On page 7, he says, "It is chiefly women and children who weave fine cotton cloth, which they dye blue and black. It was of these parts of Guinea that Anderson, correspondent of the Royal Academy of Sciences at Paris from 1749 to 1753, give the following accounts, both as the country and people. Which way, forever I turned my eyes, I beheld a perfect image of pure nature, an agreeable solitude, bounded on every side by a charming landscape, the rural situation of the cottages, in the midst of trees, the ease and quietness of the Negroes, reclined under the shade of the spreading foliage, with the simplicity of their dress and manners. They are, generally speaking, very good-natured, sociable, and obliging. I was not a little pleased with my very first reception, and it fully convinced me that there ought to be a considerable abatement made in the account we have the savage character of the Africans." Continuing on page 8. "The inhabitants of the Grain and Ivory Coast are represented by those that deal with them as sensible, courteous, and fairish traders of the coast of Guinea. They rarely drink to excess. If any do, they are severely punished by the king's order. They are seldom troubled with war. If a difference happens between two nations, they commonly end the dispute amicably. The inhabitants of the Gold Coast and Slave Coast likewise, when they are not artfully incensed against each other, live in great union and friendship, being generally well-tempered, civil, tractable, and ready to help any that need it. In particular, the natives of the kingdom of Wida are civil, kind, and obliging to strangers, and they are the most gentlemanlike of all the Negroes, abounding in good manners toward each other. The inferiors pay utmost respect to their superior, so wives to their husbands, children to their parents, and they are remarkably industrious. All are constantly employed, the men in agriculture and the women in spinning and weaving cotton." So cotton was in Africa before it came to America. The inhabitants of Congo and Angola are generally a quiet people. They discover a good understanding and behave in a friendly manner to strangers, being of a mild temper and affable carriage. Upon the whole, therefore, the Negroes who inhabit the coast of Africa from the river Senegal to the southern bounds of Angola, are so far from being stupid, senseless brutes, lazy barbarians, the fierce, cruel, prodigious savages they have been described, that on the contrary, they are represented by them who have no motive to flatter them, as remarkable, sensible, considering the few advantages they have for improving their understanding, as industrious to the highest degree, perhaps more so than any other natives of so warm a climate, as fair, just, and honest in all their dealings, unless where white men have taught them. And just to speak about the wars that were created by the enslavers, on page 12 of the same book, the 30th, no trade yet, but our traders came on board today and informed us the people had burnt 4 towns, so that tomorrow we expect slaves off. The 31st, fair weather, but no trading yet. We see each night towns burning, but we hear many of the Seafro men are killed by the inland Negroes, so that we fear this war will be unsuccessful. 2nd of January. Last night, we saw a prodigious fire break out about 11 o'clock, and this morning see the town of Seafro burnt down to the ground. It contains some 100 houses, so that we find their enemies are too hard for them to present, and consequently, our trade spoiled here. Therefore, about 5 o'clock, we weighed anchor to proceed lower down. The second abstract, from the Journal of the Surgeon, who went from New York on the same trade, as follows. The commander of the vessel sent to acquaint the king that he wanted a cargo of slaves. The king promised to furnish him, and in order to do it, set out designing to surprise some town and make all people prisoners. Sometime after, the king sent him word he had not yet met the desired success, having attempted to break up 2 towns, but having been twice repulsed, but that he still hoped to procure the number of slaves. In design, he persisted till he met his enemies in the field. A battle was fought, which lasted 3 days, and the engagement was so bloody that 4,500 men were slain upon the spot. Such is the manner wherein the Negroes are procured. Thus, the Christians preach the gospel to the heathen. Now that's just a little bit. I'm going to read just a little bit more, but the link to this pamphlet will be down in the comments if you want to get the entire thing and read it for yourself. And first to the captain employed in this trade. Most of you know the country of Guinea, several parts of it, at least, between the river Senegal and the kingdom of Angola. Perhaps now, by your means, part of it becomes a dreary, uncultivated wilderness, the inhabitants being all murdered or carried away, so that there are none left to till the ground. But you well know how populous, how fruitful, how pleasant it was a few years ago. You know the people were not stupid, not wanting in sense, considering the few means of improvement they enjoyed. Neither did you find them savages, fierce, cruel, treacherous, or unkind to strangers. On the contrary, they were in most parts a sensible and ingenious people. They were kind and friendly, courteous and obliging, and remarkably fair and just in their dealing. Such are the men whom you hire, your own countrymen, to tear away from this lovely country, partly by stealth, partly by force, part made captive in those wars, which you rise or foment on purpose. You have seen them torn away, children from their parents, parents from their children, husbands from their wives, wives from their beloved husbands, brethren and sisters from each other. You drag them who have never done you any wrong, perhaps in chains, from their native shore. You have forced them into your ships like a herd of swine, them who have souls immortal as your own. Only some of them leaped into the sea and resolutely stayed underwater till they could suffer no more from you. So there you have it. Our people weren't savages. We weren't these naked brutes who just didn't have anywhere to look to or to turn. We lived in peace, we lived in harmony, we were always kind, we were always nice. there was some misfortune, but the same things that they did back then, where they created wars to keep us killing each other and selling each other, are the same things that are happening now. And these are the things that we have to stop. So if you want to talk about it some more, leave those comments down below. If you think I got something wrong, hit me up. My email is thereadybrew@gmail.com. I love to hear from you. But until the next time, thank you for tuning in. Peace.